to the self-paced lesson training for JROTC Cyber Instructors. In this training, we will cover the fourth lesson in Unit 1, Lesson 1.1.3, Authentication and Password Attacks. Supplies for note-taking may be helpful during this training session. This can include a pen or pencil and some paper. There are 3 components in this lesson. The lesson guide and PowerPoint are for you as the instructor. The activity, Have You Been Pwned, is a handout that you can print for your students. And now we're going to start with the slide deck for Lesson 1.1.3, Authentication and Password Attacks. In this lesson, we're going to look at how databases are a part of password attacks. First, let's define a database and make sure that students understand that a database is similar to an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheet, but on a much, much larger scale. And the important thing about a database is that it has code to make data retrieval fast and efficient. You can use the examples of databases being used for airplane reservations, credit card numbers, student grades, large gatherings of data that change often and need to be retrieved in many different ways. And of course, account user credentials would fall into that category. This slide shows the first of 3 ways in which databases are used for password guessing attacks. A dictionary attack doesn't use a real dictionary like Webster. It's called a dictionary attack, but it is a software program which automates the process of rapidly testing many potential passwords. Now that sounds a lot like a brute force attack that we talked about that in the last lesson, but there's a difference in a brute force attack. The software is trying all possible combinations of the characters. You tell it to try just numbers, it'll try out combinations of numbers. If you say numbers in lowercase letters, it'll do that. It doesn't care if it makes a reasonable word. That doesn't matter. But a dictionary attack tries to use the concept that human beings like to use words. We just do. A dictionary attack tries lots of different words in lots of different languages, and it's actually going to spell them in weird ways. So it's not just going to be a Webster word. It might be a team name. It might be a movie name. It could be something spelled with the @ sign for A's. But if there's a word in your password, even misspelled, the dictionary attack can find it. Next is hybrid attack. It's clearly a combination of the dictionary database. So there's a whole database that people are using. They're trying all the things in that database. Some of them are ridiculously large files. Those dictionary databases and hybrid attack use both of those. It might try all kinds of words, and then it might try a combination with numbers at the end. There's a lot of different ways of doing a brute force attack or a hybrid attack. Password spraying is another way of doing a password guessing attack. And again, it depends on the database. So password spraying is going to take a database of common passwords, and we can come up with lots of really good lists. The most common password in the world is 123456789, just right across the top of the keyboard. I love you is also really popular. There are large databases of very commonly used passwords, and we can try them on lots and lots of accounts. We can just take 10,000 employees at First Bank, and we can automate trying the password 123. Chances are, statistically, probably 2 or 3 people at that bank are going to be lazy, and they're going to be using password 123. For a hacker, 1 to 2 hits out of 10,000 would actually be pretty good because they used a computer. They didn't invest anything in this. If they hit, they hit. If not, then they go on to the next company. They just keep trying. The advantage of using a password spraying attack is that it avoids being locked out. So if I'm trying to get into John Smith's account, most companies or organizations will have your account lock out after you try an incorrect password like 3, maybe 4 times. Sometimes even only after 2 times. So I don't get a lot of chances to get a hit. But with password spraying, what I do is I'm not just honing in on one account. I will try this just one time. I'll do password 123 just one time. I'll never get locked out. It's highly efficient. Keep in mind that password spraying is the inverse of a brute force attack. A dictionary brute force tries to access one account, like we just said, just John Smith with lots of different passwords. Password spraying is going backwards. We use one password and try it on lots of different accounts. Hopefully, restating it that way helps students understand it just a little bit better. In one case, we're trying lots of passwords on one account. Password spraying is trying one password on lots of different accounts. So if we're right, and statistically we probably are, a lot of people will be using some common password and our attack will pay off. The third type of database and password guessing attack is something called credential stuffing. When you're attacking an online account, the attacker usually needs three things. They need a website where the user has an account. They need to know their username. Sometimes that's easy and sometimes it's not. But then we also need their password. So to effectively get into someone's account, I need a website, a username, and the password. And most attacks are going to start with the first and the second, and then figure out a method to try out passwords on the account. So we know John Smith has an account at Amazon, and we know his username is jsmith. Now we just have to figure out his password. That's not what credential stuffing is doing. In this case, the attacker has the second and the third. They have the username and they have the password. And where do they get those from? They get them from something called a data breach, and they will just use that username and that password on tons of different websites to see if the credentials are going to work. And given that a lot of people use the same passwords, and often if they get to choose the username, they will use the same username, and credential stuffing will be fairly successful. Reports show that 52% of people have a favorite password. There is a link on the slide to the Google Harris poll. Now, it's worth showing to your students about what they get from doing a survey of people and their understanding of how they secure themselves online. It's pretty interesting. It's done by generation and it's done by understanding whether or not password reuse is really important. The credential stuffing attack relies on the fact that human beings do this. They reuse their passwords and they get this information to work on multiple websites. So let's talk about database breaches, and we're going to do an exercise on this website called Have I Been Pwned? Your students probably know that because the term originated with gamers, and in gaming it means an opponent has been defeated or owned. We know that databases are used for lots of things. We talked about that in our very first slide, and databases hold valuable, sometimes confidential information, which makes them prime targets. When a database is no longer secure, whether it's accidentally made public or whether it's stolen by hackers, is called a breach. And often the attacker is going to steal the company's database in order to access a list of usernames and passwords. Why? Why are they trying to steal the entire company's database? The most simple reason is you can post it for sale. Those are often hackers. They'll just sell the entire database and let somebody else figure out how to make use of it. But they may be targeting an organization, so they might be looking for the credentials for internal employees at a hospital, or for a company, they might be looking for customer credentials at a large retailer. All of these things make it possible for hackers who are doing things like credential stuffing to find a big source of usernames and matching passwords. It's worth taking a moment to validate this website. Have I been pwned? Because it sounds kind of sketchy, right? But this is a big resource that has all the information from data breaches that have happened over the years. And why would somebody post that? Doesn't that make our lives less secure? This site was created by Troy Hunt. He is a highly respected cybersecurity practitioner, and the industry considers Have I Been Pwned, which is how another way it's known, HIBP, as a very safe tool. As a matter of fact, a valuable tool for the cybersecurity community. And I'd just like to share a quote from Tony Hunt's blog. I created this site as a free resource for anyone to quickly assess if they may have been put at risk due to an online account of theirs having been compromised or pwned in a data breach. All the data on this site comes from breaches where the data is already exposed to hackers or people that should not have been able to view it. Data breaches are rampant, and many people don't appreciate the scale or frequency with which they occur. By aggregating the data here, I hope it not only helps victims learn of compromises on their accounts, but also highlights the severity of the risks of online attacks on today's internet. He has made this resource available so that you can check on whether your accounts have been found in data breaches. Sure, like there's a breach, some company, ABC, and you got some sort of weird email that told you that others about the breach and they're going to get you a credit report, but that's really not enough. And most of us don't even see those emails or pay attention to them. We're really not aware of when our credentials are part of a breach. And now this is where we're going to finish up with another activity. And the activity is, have you been pwned? And so in this activity, your students are going to do some exercise to understand how the website works and how it can be valuable. And that brings us to the end of our 4th lesson. We'll see you next time.